Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and I wanted to share my Christmas story. And my Christmas story is about where I worked. It was a florist shop. And the interesting thing is that we made a slight mistake. And the slight mistake had a fascinating effect on a lot of people. Let me step back and try to explain the whole story of the Christmas debacle. I started working in 1977, I guess 77, yeah, for a florist in Rockaway, New Jersey. I like to call it One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest florist because it was a very strange place. Now, the players involved, long since gone, I'm sure. The designer of the floral arrangements was Ollie. Very fascinating person. I'll explain him more in just a moment. He was married to Marilyn. And the third in the Trinity at this flower shop was Betty. She was Marilyn's mother, so the mother-in-law. I was hired to be Man Friday there initially. I would drive and deliver flowers. I would take care of things around the shop. And eventually they realized I had somewhat of an artistic bend, and they would allow me to do decorations and do windows and things like that. And so I worked for them for a couple of years. And Ollie was a very unique person. I don't understand how else to say it. When I got hired there, I sat there in the back with him while he was working. And one day he looked at me and his eyes were wide. And he said, "They're here." And I said, "Who's here?" "Them." And he would point up to a shelf on the wall. And I said, "Oh." And he said, "They're watching us." And I say, "Oh." And so I would say, "There's somebody back here." And then he would get really angry and he'd fire me. And then Betty, the mother-in-law, would rehire me. Now, this went on, it must have happened 30 times. Because every time I went back there, he was in communication with them. Okay. And I was doing my thing, trying to get around all of the nonsense and the insanity that was going on there. But after about a year and a half, I had become very used to Ollie and them and Marilyn and Betty. And they said, "Why don't we do a great window for Christmas?" And I said, "Okay, I'm game for that." And so we looked around and found a second-hand Santa Claus. Now let me explain this. This was a Santa that spun right and left, back and forth on his little pivot thing. And he would give you his profile, and then he would look at you. And he had that wonderful big grin, smiling, Merry Christmas. And he had a wooden frame, and we set him up in the window. Now, we dressed him up in these beautifully puffy green pants and a big red top and the hat and the beard. He had the beard already, it was plastic. And and so we set him all up, and we put a big sign behind him saying, "Look what Santa has for you for Christmas." And we had pictures of various flowers and arrangements and gifts that we would sell. And once we got it all together, it looked pretty good. And Santa, would, turn and then, and he would give you his profile, and then he would turn to you, and each time having that big smile. Everything went wonderfully and ripping for about a week. And people would come by saying how much they liked the window display. Now, the way it usually worked at this store, Betty would go in first. And a lot of times she would say, "You want me to pick you up?" And we'll go in. And so she would pick me up, and we'd go to the shop. Well, after about a week, it seems that Santa had a slight malfunction. Now, the frame of Santa was made of wood. And in his consistent twists and turns, part of his frame kind of broke loose and fell forward. Now, Santa looked very interesting because the green pants that we had, the puffy green pants that we had created, had a little bit of a problem because this piece of wood had fallen into the pants and his pants were standing up, and Santa looked very happy. Let's just put it that way. And so he would twist back and forth, give you his profile, and then he would look at you with a big smile, and there would be a big sign saying, "Look what Santa has for you." Okay? And so we closed up on Saturday, and then we closed on Sunday. And on Monday morning, Betty picked me up. And so we went to the shop, and there was a crowd in front of the store. And we're saying, wow, everybody wants to come in and buy some stuff, And people were taking photographs of our window display. And we said, wow, they really like it. And so as we went and got closer, much to our horror, we saw that Santa had had a malfunction, and that Santa was a little excited. And Santa was giving you his profile, and then he would just turn and look at you and then go back and forth. And everybody was roaring with laughter because it was pretty funny, because Santa had gotten really naughty. And so we looked at it and we were horrified. We ran in and took Santa down and fixed him. So his I don't know what to call it. His vast expanse in the front of him was removed, and everything was placed back, and then Santa came back, and Santa was back to being good old Santa and not naughty Santa. But it was really kind of fascinating. A lot of people obviously were amazed by this. We kind of scandalized the whole town at our flower shop. And one of the last things I did there, and then of course Ollie would go back to talking to them. Betty would rehire me. Marilyn was in her own world. And Santa was back in one piece. And that's my little Christmas story, going back a long, long time.